if you,
I'm recording now, by the
yeah,
way.
no, we were talking about my pop selections for the sports affiliation, and
Yep.
my feeling on anything, if you're going to test it scientifically, is you have to keep the variables as close as possible to being the same. And then you could test the process to see if it works. And,
Yeah. That's
you
called
know,
experimental design.
yeah, yeah.
I've had a course in writing and experimental design for grants and research. I mean, a lot of our graduate students have to be educated. A lot of time they get that with their professor, their mentor, but I actually have a textbook around here somewhere. I think I brought it home on experimental design, especially for field biology when you're out in the
Oh,
field doing
yes.
things.
Yes.
If you're doing plants, animals, that there's all sorts of soil stuff, the sunlight, water, wind. One side of the mountain is different than, drier than the other side. I mean, you're a weather guy, you understand that.
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
biologists in the field have to understand the geology and the weather side of things as well. So we have to be kind of a jack of all trades if you're a field biologist. You've got to know the plants, the insects, and we still can't get it all. Uh, but it's because the concept of uncertainty. You don't know what's there until you test it. So if there was, say, 100 years ago, they used to dump some residual from a an industry that that doesn't exist. I don't know, turpentine or kerosene factory, and you start doing your experiment, and that could be just under the soil. And then all of a sudden you're getting these weird readings, or if there's, just natural, minerals and things that are weird and different. So there's a lot of work that field biologists have to do. And I bet the farmers have a
Oh,
touch of that
yes.
as
Yes.
well. They just don't look at a field and say, okay, I'm going there with the corn, I'm going there with the soybeans. You've got to figure out nitrogen levels, you've got to figure out soil moisture, historical
Yes.
aspects. This
Yes.
side, is close to the river, so I'm getting this, and over here I'm, near the windbreak and I get this kind of
Yep.
stuff. So there's a lot of that, and I don't, as you know, Dennis, you and I haven't seen a lot of that level of detail, and that's what we did in our posters, was try to get to a deeper level. I noticed I didn't say the deepest, but a deeper level,
Yes.
with the
Yes.
knowledge that, hey, it's this is stands until we get deeper or we figure out a new way to test it. So that's what sometimes people get mad that science changes, and but that is what science is. It never is, regardless of what you say, it's never quite settled. I understand there's a probability like 99.999. It's, gravity does exist and we understand it, but till the alien comes down with an anti-gravity spacecraft, then that might change things. But right now, it is what it is. And so everything stands until we falsify it. And so, but if we're never if we're never testing, then we never can falsify it. And if we don't have a group of people testing each other, doing
Yeah.
looking over none of that exists in our field. And that's part of what I would love to see in the time I have left on this earth, is to start that. I don't know if we'll ever see it, and whichever one of us lives longer, that keeps our Alzheimer's brain going a little bit. maybe we can push that. And that's what I hope. I don't know. I have no clue. I was encouraged by the few people that did show up because we kind of did the expo kind of unannounced. And so I'm hoping that, you and I will talk more about, recruiting people, but that's what we need. And so when you decide, oh, you're setting standards and levels that seem, it's kind of rule of thumb, right? There was, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot the physicist, but his comment about a lot of things in science was rule of thumb until get the actual research. A lot of time, rule of thumb can get you pretty close to the answer, and until you get the right equipment and test. And you can't. He said you can't be afraid to step out there a little bit. You've got to be confident enough to, like, well, based on what I have, this is what I'm thinking, and that's what I've seen, that you are not scared to walk out there a little bit,
No.
and I like that. And we're kind of the opposite. Fantasy receipts, if they got us, it'd be lean what they're trying to, because we're smart enough never to proclaim all or none, and these outrageous things. I mean, let's just say we ain't the low hanging fruit, and by the time they start picking on us, it must be really bad. If they've come into our door, it's something else, Dennis. That means they have just set the whole world on fire to get to us. So, but I do like that, and I do enjoy hearing you guys, snap, crackle, pop, hearing that discussion. And not that I'm following everybody, but just that interaction, that give and take, that different opinion, that inspires me to think about things. And I hope that's what we do with our podcast. And I think that's what Greg, I think he knows that's part of it, is to inspire that interactions and thinking. And that's, I think he's sharp fella, probably sharper than us. And
Yes.
he realizes that that's part of it that doesn't get a lot of play. And I know some of the OGs know that. They just, it's just, the people out there, people player, they don't care. They just give me the winners, cut, give me the fire. I'll worry about the wood later concept that my students all, yeah, Doc, but we'll study later. Just give us answers to the test. And that's human nature. And that's just the way it is, Dennis. But anyway, I do like your snap, crackle, pop. And I like in your head, you're shooting for standards, and hopefully we can up your game over the years. And that's
Yeah.
what I suspect. If we were doing this 10 years ago, think about where we were 10 years ago, Dennis.
Oh
We,
man.
you talk, we're like, we're blind mice 10 years ago. And I think you and I got about one eye open now. So we're still struggling to get both eyes open, but we're further down the road, and that's what I look forward to. And
Well,
anyway,
well,
I do like
yeah.
that.
Well, there was an interesting discussion that I stumbled across on Twitter that really summed up how, and I'm going to use a word here,
Uh-oh.
and when I use this word, it is not meant as an insult on anybody. It is a descriptive word. And I was there at one point as well. And you're talking about looking back. I mean, when I first started dissecting data for fantasy football, I did it like everybody else because I saw, you see what is being done, and that is the first thing you do. Okay. So you mimic what's out there. What was out there when I started was the exact same thing in fantasy football that I did with great success in fantasy baseball, because I was playing fantasy baseball a little bit before I was playing fantasy football. And in fantasy baseball, it's rotisserie style, where you just add up the stats. So it's like a total points league. But imagine if in a total points league, Professor, if you got scored for all of the guys on your bench as well as your starting lineup. And that's similar to how it is in rotisserie baseball, because you draft this team of players and you usually had 3 IR slots where you could bring in the player, but everybody that was on your roster was scoring points for you. And, yes, you got to replace a guy if he got hurt for a long time, but you had to make that decision. Am I subbing him out for the week, or am I keeping him in there? And you counted the whole week. So that's how I thought fantasy football would work as well, just counting up the stats. But in fantasy football, even in best ball leagues, you only take the best starting lineup every week, and you count it every week. You don't count, how many points your entire roster had, or baseball, you're looking at, they call it a 5x5. You're looking at 5 hitting criteria and 5 pitching criteria. So it's important to collect as many home runs, because that's what gets counted. It'd be no different than if we did rotisserie style fantasy football, where we are grading guys by how many yards receiving they had, how many yards rushing they had, how many touchdowns they had. So if we were counting all of those stats, and maybe how many receptions and how many runs, I don't know. But, the idea would be to come up with 5 categories, and you're counting them all. That's when it matters to have year-end projections that are accurate. But what we do in fantasy football is very different. We count stats every week. So it doesn't matter if the guy had 1,500 yards rushing or receiving. It's how he got to that total that matters. And that was the big change. So 30 years ago, when I started playing more fantasy football, I came into it with the mindset of every stat counts, and we're counting all the stats just like we do in baseball, right? Well, we're not. So this word I'm going to use, I was once there. I was once ignorant to how the game really worked. And I see people all the time displaying that they're ignorant to how the game works. Now, I'm not saying they're idiots and ignorant people. I'm just saying, I'm using that as a descriptive word. They don't understand the basics of their own fantasy football league. The first thing you have to do when you join a fantasy football league is look at the scoring. If the scoring is different than a standard league, you need to play different. If you don't, then you're ignorant to how the individual rules will affect the outcome of the game. And I see so many people that post a roster where they show all their injured players, and they're like, "Oh, woe is me. Fantasy football is all luck. Look at this, not an injury or whatever in sight, and I didn't have a guy over 7 points." And you look at that team of starters that they put out there, and every single one had a tough defensive matchup. And you look at it and you go, well, you deserve that outcome. Like, I understand those players, you picked 8 players who were your first 8 draft picks, and they look like they should be good to go to have in the starting lineup. But it was an unusual week where 7 of your 8 had a bad matchup. If you don't understand that you occasionally have to get off a good player Like, I had a lot of Woody Marks in my starting lineups last week, but I went into it understanding the risk. I understood he could be an under 5 or an over 15 guy. He didn't have a great matchup because the game script could go a different way than what he was going to get because it's a shared volume situation with another running back. Those are dangerous. There's opportunity to be had there, but those are dangerous situations in fantasy football. So out of, all of my shares of Woody Marks, I probably had about 60% of them in play last week. But I went into it understanding, hey, this is a tough slot. I ended up with Woody Marks in the starting lineup because I didn't have anything else with injuries and buys. I didn't have anything else that looked safer than Woody Marks. But it wasn't like I thought Woody Marks was a lock to give you 20 points last week. It was just, the upside is there. I'm going to take a shot. But when I see people showing their ignorance of how fantasy football works, I'm thankful that we are no longer there. Even when I have a bad week with a player, I went into it understanding the risk because I understand the variance from week to week. And I think you and I both understand that probably better than the average fantasy football player. But that isn't because we're smarter people. It's just because we're using the scientific method that is a smarter way to handle statistics. And it's made us smarter when it comes to our player selection.
I agree. I think we beat that topic there. I worked on this a little bit today. I'm still throwing some data out on looking at the wide receivers and experience that year 3 breakout concept, just trying to test it. So I went back, and what we did last week, I looked at year rookie to year 2. And this time I went and only looked at what rookies scored above 12 fantasy points per game. And so what the categories were: if the rookie scored 12 or better, 10 to 12, 9 to 8, 7 to 6, or less than 6. And then I calculated in each bucket how many in their second year were 12 or above. In other words, in some cases, they stood, if last year's 12, then, this year they stayed, could be better, could be worse. I mean, I could break that down to like above 15 but I just used 12 as a level. I think I got some box and whiskers somewhere in the back of my mind says that's a pretty good place. So in the buckets, year 1 to 2, 73% of wide receiver rookies, 73 came back and scored above 12. So wasn't perfect, but it was 73. If they were 10 to 12, 50% came back. If they were 8 to 9, 24, 6 to 7, 9, and less than 6, 3. So interesting. That kind of sets the floor, because if there's a breakout, one might predict higher percentage of those who move forward, or some type of data that would say there's something happening. So I looked at year 2 to 3 now, Dennis. This is brand new. Same buckets, percentages: 62, 33, 19, 10, and 3 versus 73, 50, 24, 9, and 3. So I would argue the breakout is rookie to year 2, this doesn't suggest 2 to 3. There's nothing here that's like, wow, something's really higher. And then I went and, okay, what about the ones that did above 12 both years? 73%. So for year
Wow.
3, the best choice is the ones who's done really good in about 2 years. It's 73%. So I don't think they're the breakout people are talking about, because you've
No,
already revealed your hand. And there's nothing, in other words, it's not like 8 to 9, year 2, somehow this number is greater than this number. It's not. And look, this 24, this 19. It's less, Dennis. So again, I this is one way to look at the data, but this is not supporting any kind of breakout in the big sense. It doesn't mean we can't, you know, look a little deeper. And again, this is over the last 25 years. So, I don't know what to say. I'm looking for it, and you hear it, but this is the data that I see, Dennis.
I think it's an old term. I think it's an outdated concept, but I'm glad it's being tested with data. I started going back in calculating MVP for
I would
everybody.
love to see your MVP to
Yeah.
see, does it do this? But
So far, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing more of an increase from year 1 to year 2.
and that's what
Not,
this data suggests.
yeah, I'm seeing the exact same thing you're seeing. I'm seeing, if anything, I would say it's a year 2 breakout.
Yeah.
And, even Puka Nakua, who we think of his rookie year as being fabulous, okay, because he started so fast. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
He ended up with a 118 for the season.
Well, he had 17.8.
Yeah.
Next year,
Yes.
18.8. So went up a little bit.
Well,
but it wasn't a breakout because he was already at this level. So there's no surprises here.
Yeah, and if I was to say what is a breakout season in MVP, I'd say it's 100 is the number I'd probably use. If you had a 100, you had a terrific season. And I might even go lower than that and say it's 80. 80 is a really good season. 100 is a top 12 season for running backs and wide receivers. I don't even know where you set the breakout. Like most things in fantasy football, we have a definition problem. We don't define terms very well. In your case, you're showing, hey, if it's a breakout, then the percentages should be greater.
Something should be telling me it's a breakout, and I'm not seeing it as a group.
No, but
as a group.
Even the great Puka Nakua went up from year 1 to year 2 more than he went from year 1 to year 3. Like year 2 for a quote unquote breakout is probably happening more than year 3 now. Like, I think everything has gotten to the point. Here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing more year 3 breakouts for running backs than wide receivers.
This is
nowadays.
Wide receivers, and I can do year 3 to 4, and I'm going to track it eventually. And if I get a chance, this may be on a poster, looking at the different, but just like I said, part of the poster is not necessarily to do a lot of stats, is just to establish some norms, some reference class forecasting. What are we expecting? There's a lot of metrics that you will see. They will say expected points. I believe what they're doing is scaling it to the average of that situation. What is not said is what's the number of replicants or samples in that discussion of what is an average. I don't know that. I hadn't seen the data. They just declare it. And
Yeah, and
if they have 10 data points and declare it versus 100, okay. But I need to, I'm not going to take their word for it until I see how they're doing it. And I can
well,
show you the end number here and what we're basing this on here. And I've got the database and I'm color coding
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And there are there's a few that actually, for whatever reason, didn't get. I mean, there's a failure. Look at Michael Clayton, first year, and then he just bombed out and never
Yes.
recovered. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is that the reason he stayed so long? People remembered that, it was so dramatic,
Oh, yeah.
and this may have got him this year. But look at Roddy
Y-
White, suck,
Yeah.
bam. There's a 3-year breakout. But
Yes.
that Dennis, here's the other Roddy Whites. How many green you see? Here's another one. There's another one. Okay. And so if you say, okay, a 0 for, there's a breakout. But Dennis, eh, eh, there's a lot of losers. You see, if I ignore the
No.
losers, look at old Geronimo. Remember him? He broke
Oh,
out,
yeah.
folks.
And then he never was seen again.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's
Jericho
the,
Cotchery broke out. But
yeah.
folks, that look at the losers. You can't ignore the graveyard, and that's the old. You don't see the folks who did make it. If I just show you the winners, you're like, wow. It's just like on the TV. Well, I did this, and now I made $1 million in stocks. You don't see the 99 who did the same thing and they're broke. They're not going. They don't write a book, or you wouldn't buy it. How I lost money. No, I don't think. I won't. But statistically, we need to see the entire population and establish these numbers, Dennis. And I haven't seen anybody publishing that because we don't have any journals, and that's what the poster I think I'm gonna try to do. I got too many posters. I need interns. ESPN, give me a call, put me to work, give me some money, interns, and we will knock it out of the park. But Dennis, they hadn't called me, and it's not up there on their site. That tells me people don't want it, or they don't know it exists, or they don't care. I don't know which,
Yeah.
but I care because I want to win money. Okay. If I'm
Yeah.
just, drinking a 6-pack before each draft, I don't care. Let me booze it up and maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe I'll auto draft and I won't have to stand in the, Waffle House with a chicken on my head or something, some punishment. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So
Go ahead and go into.
a couple of things. First of all, we do have this tendency in fantasy football to remember the successes that
Yeah.
broke out in the third year and to group them all together and then say, oh, look at this. Look at these 40 guys that all had their third year breakout at wide receiver. Third year breakout's a thing.
Yeah.
And I do believe there was a time when third year breakout was more prevalent than it is today. I just think that teams are forcing guys into a more important role faster in today's NFL because of the way the salary cap is. You can't afford to develop talent anymore because if you don't have success in the first 3 or 4 years as a coach, you're out of there. So a coach can't wait for a third year breakout to happen because he doesn't want that third year breakout to happen for the new coach.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. You mentioned, this concept of points over expectations or
Right.
expected points.
Right. And I
I
can
have
give you that. See,
so I
like
so
in
I
third
actually
year. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually asked somebody how that is determined.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told, well, I'm taking 6 experts, their forecasts, and then
Ooh.
I'm taking the median of that, and then
Oh.
I'm comparing that to actual fantasy points. And so my question was, what if the 6 experts you're picking aren't very good?
Yeah.
Like all you're doing is, or they're biased to look at a certain team more than another
Right.
team. I don't like to introduce another variable into the equation. It's just like when we're talking about how I'm doing my pop picks, where I have to look outside the top 12 at quarterback and tight end. I have to look outside the top 24. So I have a process that I go through. And I start like with quarterbacks. I start at quarterback 13 and I take the next 5 guys who are rating pretty good in my rating system. And maybe because they were injured, maybe because they missed a game, whatever, they're not showing up in the top 12 in total points yet. So I get up to 5 players from each position. And then I compare to defensive matchups. And then I compare to other data. But the reason I do it the same way every week is so I only have the same set of variables. Because at the end of the year, I want to test to see if this method worked. If it worked really well, then I'm probably going right back to it next season. But if I determine, every loser that I have, I look at, okay, I picked this guy, I picked Godwin, for instance, to be one of my pop guys last week. Why didn't he succeed? Was it a game script? What was it? And I came to the conclusion based on his playing time that he's just playing his way into shape right now. He's been out with an injury. There's a reason that there's preseason games, even though the teams don't use them the same way that they used him. There's a reason that there's practice games. There's reasons that an Alabama schedules abnormal U as their first game of the year rather than opening with Ohio State.
Yeah.
You want to get into a routine. And in football, that routine includes being hit. Unlike other sports, it's the only sport where you got to get used to being hit. And how will your body take the punishment from week to week? But in fantasy football, I think you have to have a process. And you're showing a process to determine if third year breakout is real, it's a myth, or is it just old fashioned? Like there's some things like there's definitions that change over time. When I first started playing fantasy football, a bell cow was somebody who got 25 carries or more in a game. We're not talking touches, Professor. We're talking 25 carries. If you use that definition, we'd have 0 bell cows.
Yeah, I could. I've got touch database.
Yeah,
I could calculate what that is. Old days and new days. I just
yeah. And we know that it's changed. Okay. And so now, like if I'm forecasting someone to get 15 or more touches,
right,
because receiving points are more valuable than rushes anyway. You get a point every time they catch the ball. I want
right,
more receiving points because that gives you a more solid floor with a
right,
player. I mean, look at guys like, Kenneth Walker versus somebody who catches passes.
right.
You don't crater as much when you get those receptions. But, that definition has changed. Bell cow, I don't think using the old definition, I don't think there was a single bell cow last year. Because even Saquon Barkley only saw 25 or more carries in very few games. So this third year breakout, I think it's just it's
Well,
bell
for
cow.
wide
It's a term that's
receivers,
changed for wide receivers.
yeah, and I'll look at others as well and figure it all out. But anyway, I just wanted to hit that, and before we went on to the next topic, or if you've got a gripe, or I know we need to talk a little bit about some waivers. You and I need to
Yeah.
discuss what everybody's discussing. Haskins and or Hasan or whatever his name, Vidal. That's like the big. I mean, people are spending insane amounts of money, and maybe good, maybe not, and we just need to chew that up a little bit. But do you have any
Yeah,
gripes or anything?
let's launch into the main
I
show
forgot.
and
I
discuss
was
that. No,
thinking
we're cool. We're
I
cool.
thought we were in the main show. That shows you how
We're just in the pre-show right
the
now, but
pre-show. Okay,
it's
yeah. Start
the
the main show.
pre-show is
Yeah.
pre-show is sometimes the best part of the show. It's the
Yeah.
philosophical
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
the show.
I
All
like it.
right, here we go, Professor.
Okay.
How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? You get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method. What is the scientific method? Well, when applied to fantasy football, it simply means we're letting statistics guide us to answers about players and situations. We're not coming up with an idea. Oh, I think Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time. And then going to find statistics that back up our opinion. No, we're letting the statistics guide us to the answer. And that will lead to more success in fantasy football. And joining me as he does twice a week and now 3 times a week, if you count our sister show, the Matchup Lab, over at the Sports Affiliation. He is the fantasy professor, after all. He's a real professor emeritus. It's John Bush. And John, boy, oh boy, week 6 already. It just seems like we were talking about draft season starting a little while ago. And here we are. We're nearing the 1/3 point of the entire season.
That's true. Data Dog is excited here. You could hear him in the back here. He's excited. He's sitting there. Yes, it's 1/3. I got some really good teams. I got some that are hurting. I heard on the radio, and I hadn't confirmed this, but I heard that people were going back looking at the ADP, and it's some carnage there in the early draft rounds. And I think it's not just your team; it's a lot of teams. We're all fighting the waiver wire, trying to grab. Look at what's going on with the Chargers. A lot of people squawking and talking today. Hampton, do you got any gripes before I go into this?
Well, you talk about looking back at your teams,
Okay.
and I'm actually doing a study this
Okay.
year to see how the scoring goes at FPPC leagues. Okay, so I'm watching my leagues and my teams a lot closer than I ever have. And one thing I discovered, professors, I'm pretty damn gone excited. I only have 2 teams out of 18 that are in what I would call bad shape, and only one that's really in bad shape. I got one team that's 102 points out of the playoffs already. And yes, that was a Joe Burrow team. So I had Joe Burrow and Malik Neighbors. So that it explains. There's a reason that team's not doing well. But otherwise, I've got 16 of my 18 teams that are either already in the top 6 or so very close, like less than 30 points out after 5 weeks. That's fantastic because I know from past experience that I do better during bye weeks than most people do. And here's the thing. If you look at ADP and you can see landmines that are out there, and those are unfortunate. But if you have a good team build philosophy, you will avoid the landmines because every one of my 18 teams has had an injury by now that has been significant. But I build my teams to be able to absorb some carnage. Obviously, if too much carnage or at the wrong positions build up, you're going to be in trouble. And even if you're in trouble, like even my worst team on FPPC, if I start doing better in week 6, I can still make the playoffs. I've got, I only have 102 points to make up over the next, 8 weeks? That's 15 points a week. That's doable. That can happen because you can have a point swing of 40 to 50 points in a week easily. So even the bad teams that you have right now, my biggest gripe is the people that give up. Like, yeah, it's 5 weeks in. If you're 0-5, you're probably only needing 7 wins or 8 wins to make the playoffs in most of your leagues. So even if you're 0-5 right now in a matchup league, or you're 102 points out in a points league like I am, you can still get back into the game. You can get on a winning streak. You can get going. You can close the gap. You can do well. Don't give up. That's my biggest gripe, is people that have a little bit of trouble in the beginning of the season and they give up. You're going to have some issues all year in fantasy football. Things are not going to go perfect. But if you built your team in the correct way, you can withstand some carnage. And I would say, Professor, to have 16 of my teams in good shape after 5 weeks out of 18, 16 of 18.
It's pretty good.
I'll take that any day of the week.
And Dennis, when, even if they're 0-5, you could still use your diary and get points and make notations about trades or pickups or drops, or start looking at your draft board again. Look at who's winning in your league. What did they do? Did they get lucky, or are they somebody to mimic next year? And if you are giving up, then I got a simple thing. Put in your diary. You go down to if you down to the store, get an Oscar Mayer hot dog package. Take your scissor, cut out the Oscar Mayer hot dog wieners, stick that in your diary and says, yes, I'm a wiener, I'm giving up. So that way next year you can turn to that page and says, oh, I'm a weenie dog and I'm just, I can't take it. And here I am. So yeah, you could put that in your diary. I'm a big weenie dog. Or you can fight and be fierce like a devil dog and grab every point and chew as many teams as possible. Take them out of the playoffs, okay? Enjoy being a spoiler, okay? Don't be just gnawing on them with your rubber teeth, okay? So don't be a weenie dog, Dennis. Be a fierce devil dog and enjoy you helping them lose, and enjoy that. And that can be part of your enjoyment as well as you're trying to keep going. But the fight is fun. I keep track of what I do. Look at those. Do you win at 0? Have you ever done it? What did you do? If you don't keep a diary, what did I do? I don't know. I was a weenie dog. I don't know what I did. Okay. And yeah, your punishment should be take the Oscar Mayer hot dog suit you can buy at the Halloween, put it on, and march around to your next draft and just say, folks, all y'all have to do is beat me first 5 weeks, 5 games, and I'm gonna put my weenie dog suit on and be a weenie again. Is that what you want? No. So be a devil dog. Get a werewolf mask. Be fierce in your play.
Every week, every team is another data point to learn from. And if you don't learn from mistakes, you're doomed to make those same mistakes over and over and over. Many years ago, I did like a lot of your favorite fantasy football analysts, and I did year-end projections. And I thought that was it. I just got to get better at year-end projections and I will win more money. Professor, I got to the point where I was so good at year-end projections that if you took injuries out of the equation and you just graded me based on how I did if you equated everything to a full, at that time, 16 game schedule, I was hitting on over 90% of my projections. 90% of my projections were within like 5 to 10, like under 10% off. That was tremendous. If you look at a lot of the projections that are out there, they're way off. They're up and down. They're all over. Mine were pretty darn good. And I lost money. And it told me, because I was keeping notes, you're getting better at this, but you're getting worse in the ROI. Maybe what you're doing doesn't make any sense. Maybe it isn't. Maybe projections, maybe year-end projections don't matter. And that's the only way I discovered that. And then I tripped over an article in a magazine by this guy you may have heard of called Bob Lung, who was suggesting that consistency in fantasy football is what matters. And he laid out his whole thing. And I read it as a scientist. I looked at the info that he was providing, and then I tested it. And doggone it if it didn't work. And that's how I started down the road of looking at weekly data. And, my way of looking at it is different than his. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. And it's based on what I think is sound reasoning. And then you and I have discovered that combining metrics actually is better than any one metric on its own. If I have a player that does well in 5 metrics that are all looking at slightly different things, that player is better than the guy who does great in 1 metric and bad in 3 others. And so we have learned over the years working together of what to look at too, but you don't get to that point without taking a few lumps in the win-loss column. But learn from every one of those data points, because that's how you get better. So don't give up. That's the worst thing you can do.
I agree.
But Professor, we are faced with a very tough choice again this week, and it's 2 weeks in a row now that we have had to choose, because we're always saying the guy you want to own in fantasy football is the next man up, right?
Right.
At running back especially. Sometimes the question is not easy as to who the next man up is. Last week at this time, I would say there was probably about a 60 or 70% of the people out there that expected Emil DeMarcado to be the lead running back, the next man up with the loss of Benson, right?
Yep.
Is that a reasonable 60 to 70% were leaning that way?
Yeah.
What were we saying last week?
Carter.
Michael Carter.
Yeah.
Who ended up leading the pack?
Yeah.
Michael Carter. This week, I don't think it's as clear cut because once again, the Chargers lose another running back. They've already lost Najee Harris in my all
Hampton
30.
went on IR officially today.
Yes. Hampton on the IR. He
And
is gone.
Vidal was moved up from the practice
Yes.
squad today.
Which is what we expected. And last week on all 32, I wish I would have listened to my own advice.
Yeah.
Because on all 32, I said it's a good idea to add Kamani Vidal for $1.
Yep. And you told me that.
I told you that.
And I looked and I was, I think I was so focused on getting Carter.
Yes.
And using my tricks and who am I going to drop for Carter that by the time the smoke cleared, I just kind of moved, okay, I'll get to Vidal, later.
Next week. Yeah.
That kind of thing. And, I mean, there's some others out there that are, and I told Dennis we are to update,
Yes.
the handcuff, I don't know, opportunity index or whatever you want to call it, Dennis.
Yes.
I would like to see that maybe next week or so. I mean, but I know you're so busy with the 2 articles, but maybe in the waiver wire when you could just throw out some other deeper plays, right? Like the Ray Davis. I mean, you assume Ray Davis, you assume people know that, but I actually heard some folks on the radio were discussing they were going to drop Ray Davis to get Vidal or Haskins or Hessen or whatever. What's his name? I can't.
Hassan Haskins.
Haskins. Okay.
Yes.
So sometimes, but they did say it right that sometimes who's dropped is intriguing too.
Oh, yes.
So if they're dropping Ray Davis and you're thinking, well, he's not done it, that's not the point. The point is Ray Davis is not worth anything until James Cook is injured. And you're saying, well, is he going to be it? I don't know. And the trick of having a deep bench is you stockpile. So I would think, Dennis, in your waiver wire or something, you might divide out whose impact just based on your MVP. Like if Cook, I would think Cook is dramatic and Ray Davis would be somebody. But the guy from Cincinnati, what's the backup to Chase Brown?
Taj Brooks.
He doesn't seem as valuable to me as Ray Davis, given what Cooks has done, how Cooks has schemed. He's part of the offense and a big part. Chase Brown has not made it that level because they lost Burrow. So that changed all the mathematics there. Before season, Brooks was on my, but now this week I may drop Brooks to get Vidal, but I'm not dropping Ray Davis. So I'm making that distinction of impact. And Dennis, I think that would be, at least for you and I, secret stuff based on your MVP. Give me the top whoever 4 or 5 that maybe are not active, that are out there, like the guy from Green Bay just came back and you told me to get him 2 weeks ago during the break. And I did. I've got him on 5 or 6. What's his name?
Emmanuel Wilson.
Yes. I've already stockpiled him. And guess what? In the leagues that he's still available, I've got the Vidal Haskins and him as number 3, right? Assuming Ray Davis or some other high impact are there. And there's one guy, Jaylen Warren, was dropped. How about that?
Oh my goodness!
So I wanted to ask you how much money Vidal, Haskins, or Warren?
Oh, it's
only
Warren,
in one league. Yeah,
Warren all the way.
Yeah, so I'm going to. I may run out of money to get the Haskins Vidal because I got to go get Warren. Somebody had dropped him just in one, Dennis. Just in one.
Yeah,
But folks, because they were on bye, that may have, people are still talking Vidal. Half the league may not even be aware he's out there.
No, and he was hurt going into his bye
And
week.
so somebody dropped him, but all of a sudden I heard he's kind of
He's
springing
probably
back.
he'll probably be active this week. It wasn't a
Well,
serious injury, and it's just like Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is going to be back very soon.
right.
Okay. Hampton, here's the thing. If a running back goes down with a knee injury or a real serious knee injury or a serious ankle injury,
Yeah.
they're going to be gone for a while.
Yep.
Okay. If it's a shoulder injury, that's a week to week thing. That is no reason to panic. And if it's a minor knee or ankle injury, that's no reason to panic. You don't panic about a guy. You don't even consider dropping a starting running back until he goes on IR. When he goes on IR, he's gone for at least 4 weeks. Now you have to make a decision on that player. My decision is usually to hold because there's usually another good option. For instance, even in a few teams on FPPC, on even my bad team on FPPC, I've held on to Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Because if I can get to the playoffs and Burrow comes back, he isn't going to come back unless he's ready to play really good football. Especially if they're out of the playoffs by then. He is not coming back unless there's a chance to keep him in the playoffs. If he comes back, he's a must start. And the same thing happens at running back. Like, I still have some Joe Mixon sitting there on the sidelines. I got one share of Mixon and redraft that I haven't dropped yet. In FPPC, we don't have IR slots for our redraft teams. So you have to make a decision. Do I hang on to him? Braylon Allen is out up to 12 weeks. He's coming off my rosters if I need a spot. But Jalen Allen should have never been cut. But that's why every week in every league that I'm in, I check availabilities, and I usually check them versus percentage owned on team.
Yeah, I look at both, Dennis. I looked at last week scoring.
Yep.
I looked at owned, and let's see.
Look at projection.
Yeah, and I look at projections.
Yeah.
So I actually spin 3 different ways to slice dice, and usually and for instance, Jalen Reed is still out there in some leagues.
Oh yeah,
Benson is actually out there.
Yeah,
and
he's
I know
coming back.
It's down the road, so I've put a little notation. I'm just watching, and that kind of thing. So now put it in your diary. See if it works out for you. But anyway, Dennis,
don't be afraid to churn that roster. Like, the crazy thing is I've gone ahead in leagues where I grabbed Luther Burden as my last wide receiver, thinking, if this guy comes through and he all of a sudden becomes a thing, he could have a huge impact towards the middle to end portion of the season.
Yep.
So I'm going to grab and stash. Then I drop him to pick up another wide receiver. Somebody else gets hurt, I might grab Burden back. Like, you don't be afraid to churn your roster. There's a reason you drop that player, but there's also a reason to keep him or to add him back. Every week, there are decisions to be made on your roster on every team. Some of them are minor. Some of them just involve maybe a kicker or a defense, but usually there's a decision to be made.
Right.
And if you look at the waivers regularly, which you should be doing every week, do a quick search. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Who dropped somebody silly? I have picked up great players during the bye week. quite often you will see people try to drop a starting wide receiver or a starting running back when they're on their bye week, figuring nobody will pick them up.
True.
I'll pick them up while they're still on their bye week in the second run of waivers, and I'll just squirrel them away. I know I can't use them that week, but his rookie season, I got Bijan Robinson that way.
Right.
Because people tried to figure out it's bye week. I need a roster spot. Nobody will pick this guy up. Oh, yeah, I will.
Yeah.
I will pick up a really good running back, even if it means I'm struggling that week. But in the case of Jaylen Warren, you're getting an instant starter. He's coming back. He'll be back this week. He's got a better chance of 12 points than probably 90% of running backs in the league.
Yeah, so I got to figure out how much to spend, but that's a rare exception. So, Dennis, what do you think about Haskins and Vidal? What are you saying?
So this week I would go whole hog for Vidal. Okay.
When you say whole hog.
So with $1,000 bank
right
at FFPC, we got $1,000 to spend for the year.
Yeah.
I usually am very aggressive early in the season because points per fantasy dollar spent is really a thing. Okay. And I'm not afraid to overbid. Like a couple of years ago, if I mostly had them already on my teams, but if there was a team where I didn't draft Puka late or Kyron Williams, I was bidding $400. I don't care if I lose. If I lose, somebody bid more, fine. But I'm not gonna be afraid of, I'm not gonna get nitpicky on spending. So with Vidal this week, assuming you haven't already blown a tremendous amount of money in Fab, I would bid up to $300 out of the $1,000 bank for Vidal. And this is why. If he hits, first of all, there's a chance that Hampton misses more than 4 weeks.
Okay.
That's the first goody part. The second is we're now heading into week 6. If I've got 900 still left on my Fab, I can now afford to be more aggressive because the number of players that are going to come available from this point in the season out is probably not as great. Like he's probably the best option we'll have at running back for a while.
Right.
So why Vidal over Haskins? Because Haskins has been on the active roster. Vidal has been up and down. Why Vidal over Haskins? It's because Haskins is a very ordinary player. That doesn't mean he's bad. He's on the roster because he was really good at Michigan for the same coach. Okay. He's pretty decent at returning kicks. He doesn't fumble very often. So he's been returning kicks. Now, there was a move this week that got me concerned because he has been one of the primary kick returners, not punt returner. They've been using a cornerback as their main punt returner. They've even been using McConkey occasionally. But as kick returner, Haskins has more kick returns than anybody else on the roster. They signed Nyheim Hines. He's going to be elevated. They signed him to the practice squad. I expect him to be elevated to the active roster. I expect Nyheim Hines was grabbed to be the new kick returner. That worries me. See, at one point I felt pretty good if it was Haskins and Vidal and Haskins was still returning kicks, that they probably want to have Vidal as the lead running back.
Right. But now
with Hines coming in as a kick returner, I'm expecting a split between Haskins and Vidal. And I'm also expecting it to maybe be game scripted, that when they have a lead and they're trying to run out of clock and just kill the clock, hold on to the ball, I wouldn't be surprised to see it Haskins as the guy that's chosen for that role. But that's the 3-4 yard gain role. Vidal is more likely to be the explosive guy who also would be in the passing game more often. Now, Haskins is really good at pass protection. So there's another problem. The Carter and DeMarcado thing, to me, was more clear cut. DeMarcado is a good third down back, but he's not an everyday back. And now we saw why, because he's also been prone to idiotic moves like fumbling the ball right before the goal line. But with Haskins and Vidal, it is not as clear cut, but I would still be aggressive because Vidal's upside is tremendous. I know he was a late round pick, but now he's got an opportunity. And he's beating out a guy in Haskins who's been on and off rosters. So it's not like you're dealing with a second or third round draft pick. You're dealing with a guy who's also like expendable. But Vidal was kept on this roster even after they grabbed Najee Harris and drafted Hampton. They thought enough of Vidal to keep him around. So I expect Vidal to be a big part of this offense because I think he'll beat out Haskins. When they do the split, I think he will perform better than Haskins and he will win more duty. The other downside of Vidal, Hampton will be back probably in 5 or 6 weeks.
So let me ask you then, who keeps a role if Hampton's back?
When Hampton's back, assuming Vidal does well.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm right about Vidal playing decent football, and last year in small sample size with a few plays here, a few plays there, we saw some explosive plays from Vidal.
Yeah.
So if I'm right about Vidal being good and being, probably a little more explosive than Haskins, then Vidal keeps some kind of a role when Hampton comes back. But here's the problem with that. They really load. Look, when they were using Najee Harris at the beginning of the season, they weren't using Hampton very much. And then they used Hampton, Hampton was getting a split, but Harris was getting a pretty good portion of that split. Now Hampton got it all. Now I expect a split. When Hampton comes back, I expect a split to stay. But Hampton's going to get like 70% of it. But I'm hoping there'll still be a role for Vidal. But by that point, you're probably talking 3-4 more injuries and you're looking at another target.
Yeah.
But you're right. I do. In fact, tomorrow morning, I'm going to go through all of the rosters and I'm going to sort out who is the next man up. Who do I think is the next man up? And who's that long shot? Who's the long shot? And what's the impact?
And I like that impact side of that equation.
And I know how to,
like Ray Davis, Cook.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know,
could start with MVP.
Yeah. And I know how to calculate that.
Yeah. So, and you could kind of, you could do a thumbnail. Okay, let's assume Ray Davis gets 70% of Cook's MVP. What does that mean? In other words, I think you and I could generate something like that and figure out a way to figure, add money to that fab equation. I think people would like to see that discussion down the road.
Just like the opportunity index. This is
Same
a next
thing,
man.
probability.
This is next man up index.
Yeah, but I think the impact, I think that needs to be part of it. I think.
Yes.
Like I said, the Brooks in Cincinnati on paper doesn't look as impactful as Ray Davis if Chase Brown and Cook both got injured this week. who would I rather have in my stable? I'd rather have Ray Davis.
Yeah, and Hampton is an 80% MVP guy as a rookie.
Yeah.
And when I look at rookies, I say, okay, what is their best? What are the, they've had 5 games. What are the best 3 games out of 5?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I were to do that, you know what his MVP score is over the last 3 games?
What?
133.
Hey, that's world class. Yeah.
So if
So
you use
again,
that, yeah.
yeah, that adds to the luster of Vidal then over Haskins.
Yeah, and the reason I use 3 games in this illustration is because that's been when Najee Harris left us after game
So
2.
if we divided, that could be like 90-50 MVP for Vidal Haskins. I don't know. You see
Yeah,
what I'm trying to do is kind of get a
yeah.
metric or a probability here. And we need to, I mean, in our, when the interns hit, that'd be a project. But
Well,
to try
well,
to figure out
yeah,
I mean, what I heard on the radio was everybody's opinion, this, but nobody was really trying to do the metric side of it that I could see. They were guessing, they were supposing, but I think there's more to be said, Dennis, and I think you and I have an opportunity to have a say in this kind of thing. I don't know, this question.
yeah. And
Maybe not
here's the
this
thing.
year, but down the road.
Well, actually, I know how to do it, and it's actually a fairly simple procedure. So I'll have this churned out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I already have we already have the logic. How did we come up with 70%? Because we know a really
I'm saying
good,
70-30 split,
yeah.
Whatever you want to
Well,
call it,
well,
60-40, whatever.
yeah. What I'm saying is the first cut in MVP, if you will, the first calculation is the substitute. A great substitute is still going to only produce maybe 80% of the starter, because otherwise they would have been the starter. And a typical is about 60%.
Right.
Okay. So rather than trying to figure out without any data, and, Miss Cleo isn't available,
Right.
just use 70% of the MVP. Because if you're using the same amount as the divider, you're using 0.7 as the multiplier in this case, you're at least consistent.
Yeah.
And now I can look at the landscape, and, like, for instance, Indianapolis just happened to have their data up on here. Okay, 140 MVP index. Okay, so 70% of that is like 98 points. Okay, so that's great. If I can get a 98-point guy off the bench, now I look at the likelihood of DJ Giddens being the guy, it's like 80%,
Right.
80-20. So now if I take 80% times that, now I've got a value. I got a next man up value for Giddens. It'll change every week, but I know what it is right now.
Right.
And it's easy to calculate that. And yes, I have to make some assumptions because I have to guess between Giddens and anybody else who's on the roster. Right now it's easy because Goodson is the other guy on the roster and he's questionable. But with a Vidal and Haskins, I think that's more of a 60-40, 70-30 split. So it's a little tighter split. With Giddens, I'm saying 80% likelihood that he's the guy. And I might even say it 90%. If we had to plug in a player this week, let's say Taylor, God, I hope he doesn't because I got him on too many teams. Yeah. But let's say JT pulls a hamstring on Friday practice. Giddens is the guy you better already have on the roster. Like, again, but this is the way we have to think, is who's the next man up? It's Giddens. Is he valuable? Yes. Do I have an open space on my roster? Well, Braylon Allen just went on IR. Yeah, I do. So I don't get Vidal and I don't get Emmanuel Wilson. And I'm picking Wilson over Giddens because Jacobs was questionable already this year. Then Giddens might be the third guy up. But, let's use a little math to determine what that is. And I like that idea. I'm gonna do that. I was gonna sit and play with old data, but why not play with valuable data for this year that can pay off? The old data will wait, and that can be Fridays and Saturdays chore. But I really like that strategy. I like that idea, and I think that is one to look at. The other big question that I have this week.
Yeah.
What will Joe Flacco mean as he's been traded to Cincinnati Bengals? And I see so many people saying
he's going to start this week.
Yes, he's going to start this week. And the question is, what does that do to the rest of the Bengals?
Yeah. I hadn't even looked at the line shift to see if it's shifted yet.
Oh, good question. Good question. My inclination is that at the very best case,
look, it was 14 and a half spread.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and now it is 14.
So they're not buying it.
They're not buying it. They're not buying it. And nor should I think they should.
Green Bay, they're thinking Green Bay spanks Cincinnati bad.
Yeah. Well, Flacco lost the job to Dylan Gabriel.
I mean, we haven't seen such a spread this year. I don't think. I think 11 or 12 maybe. But
12, I think, was our biggest. 12 is our biggest. 14 and a half is huge in the NFL.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I'm not shy of saying that I don't know what the impact will be with Flacco, but I'm not excited. Like people, this is good news for Chase Brown. I hope so. I got a lot of Chase Brown.
Yeah, and people saying good news for
it's great for Chase, but it's bad for Higgins.
And I've heard some people say no Higgins over Jamar. I mean, there's all sorts of chatter. They don't know.
And I think the key is it's just grabbing a name without any reason to believe. Jamar Chase had a 29-point game last week.
Yep.
That's pretty damn good, right?
Yes.
So who was the quarterback? Remind me.
Browning.
Oh, that was Jake Browning. Yeah. So after Jake Browning sucked so bad that he lost his job the following week.
Right.
Jake Browning in garbage time ended up producing 29 points for Chase, 11 for Higgins, and 13 for Yasubash.
It wouldn't surprise me that they flip Browning in for some plays or two. Don't think it might. I mean, at this point, if Flacco looks like he doesn't know enough of the playbook, and they're going to have to shorten the playbook, it wouldn't surprise me in the red zone or some critical. They flip Browning in to do something. I mean, I don't know what, but it could be an interesting deal. Just like I'm expecting Taysom Hill on the Saints to have a little more punch this week. I'm just not sure when or where yet. This new folks, how they use him, but I think it wouldn't surprise me that Flacco starts, but if he, seems like he's not picking it up, I could see him flipping in and out. Maybe a series, or maybe, like I said, red zone. They put Browning in. Come on, I bet something.
Or it could be garbage time for Browning. If
Flacco
could be. Is so
if
bad.
Flacco just loses, they say, okay, Browning, last quarter, it's yours.
Flacco had 6 interceptions. Browning had 8. Neither guy is a lock here.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think this is a lateral move. And here's one thing that I will say. Browning moves better than Flacco.
Oh yeah.
Now Browning doesn't move as well as Burrow.
Yeah.
but Browning moves better than Flacco.
Yeah.
This offensive line has been trash. Like
Yeah.
Chase Brown has negative yardage before he's hit in every gap. They're the only team that features that right now.
Right.
You have to be really bad not to have at least one strong point on an offensive line.
Right.
If they were going up against Dallas, I might be excited.
Right.
Green Bay's defense is tough.
Mm-hmm.
They're nasty. They hit hard.
Right.
They pursue, they rush the quarterback. Flacco can't move.
Yeah.
And I don't know. To me, it's a push, or I could even see it being worse than with Browning. They felt they had to make a move because they were losing games with Browning. I'm not sure that they're any better with Flacco. If they had added Russell Wilson, a quarterback who can still move a little bit,
yeah,
I would have been more intrigued than a 40-year-old statue who is behind the worst offensive line, in the NFL right now. I mean, that's not me saying that they're the worst. That's a lot of people saying that they're worst. I am scared of what Cincinnati. Matter of fact, a couple of games or a couple of teams where I have Higgins.
Yeah.
I've found another starter this week because I'm so worried that Cincinnati could take a step backwards. I've benched a few of my Chase Brown shares this week because I just don't know what I'm going to see.
Nice.
All right, Professor.
Before we start, give me 2 seconds. I need to open the door for my dog. But anyway, why don't you give a debate yourself here why people are going to sit Henry? Did you know I've heard that? Yeah, there's people talking that.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us a 10-cent view of that?
I'll give the whole dissertation on why I don't think that's a good move. So, yeah, I get it. I understand why people would be upset with Derrick Henry. This is why I did not draft Derrick Henry as much this year. I've got like one share out of, I guess, let's see, 6, 24, 20, 27 redraft teams. I have one share of Derrick Henry. It wasn't because I thought he'd fall off the cliff. It's that, first of all, he was more expensive than he was last year. And number two, I am a deep, deep believer in too much volume for old running backs leads to issues. Is Lamar Jackson going to be back this week? That is the big thing, because if Lamar comes back, he's going to make everybody around him better. Derrick Henry led off the season with a 29-point game. He had a 10-point game week 3. That 10-point game isn't going to hurt you. He did have a 2-point game on week 2. That killed you. He had 7 and 9 in weeks 4 and 5. That hurt bad. Always depends on who you might have available. But boy, if you got a better choice than Derrick Henry, because a bad Derrick Henry is still going to get you 8 points. Like, he's gotten 7 or more every game except for one. So he's a lock for 8 points a game. He can stumble to 8 points a game, and he gets in the end zone at a pretty high rate. So I'd be very hesitant. If I had Derrick Henry, I would have to have all kinds of great. I'd have to have a Buka in the flex. I'd have to have a lot of really good players that were locks to be 12-point guys before I would consider benching Derrick Henry. Now, he does have a bad defensive matchup this week with the Rams. They're not a pushover, but boy, I'd have a hard time benching him. I got a lot of Derrick Henry in dynasty leagues, and I'll be playing him this week. And I'm
Okay.
expecting 8 to 12 points. If Lamar's back, then I'm thinking 12 to 15 points. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about Derrick Henry.
That's that. But I'm just saying, I heard people discussing that today.
Oh, and people will because they're worried, but that's why I only got one share of him in
Yeah.
redraft.
Yeah.
I was worried about that because
Yeah.
over 310 touches,
Yeah.
I know there's going to be a decline in MVP. That's
Yeah.
why I have less Derrick Henry and less Saquon Barkley than I did last year. It wasn't because I thought they'd fall off the cliff. It's just that I was worried, and you
Mhm.
were paying premium value to get these guys. Last year, they were a value. This year, they were costly. Just like last year, Garrett Wilson was too expensive, and this year, he's a bargain. The big difference is when I have older running backs, when my running back's 30 or more in age, I start getting worried every single year that Father Time is going to catch them because Father Time's undefeated.
Yep.
With some guys, it's age 30. With some, it's age 34. But he will eventually catch up. And then when you lost Lamar Jackson, now teams only have to stop Derrick Henry.
And people have been speculating Lamar's probably not coming back because, it's just too much for him to pull them out. I don't know. There's all sorts of crazy. This is a crazy time. There's all sorts of things happening.
So Lamar Jackson might sit this week because the
Yeah.
following week they're on bye.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it make sense to, even if you took a loss, to bring your star, your stud, the guy that is going to really have to carry this team because your defense is trash.
Yep.
So you give him 2 more weeks off
Yep.
and bring him back healthy. He's got a better chance of doing Superman like things. I'm hoping Lamar Jackson's back, and I hope he's healthy.
Yep.
I'm looking elsewhere than to starting Lamar because I'm worried that he won't last the whole game.
Yep.
But it's not because Lamar is wanting to sit out. It's because Lamar's hurt. Lamar Jackson is a warrior. He didn't quit on his team against the Chiefs. He was hurt. Just because he didn't go into the blue tent of death right away
Right.
doesn't mean he wasn't hurt. He didn't quit on the team. Lamar Jackson doesn't know the word quit. Like this guy he's a warrior. Lamar Jackson's hurt. Some guys show it more than others. Like he's not going to give away that he's really badly hurt
Right.
because he's hoping to come back. But if he doesn't play, it's not because he quit on his team. It's because he just doesn't feel like he can be effective. Being Lamar Jackson, you know, Aaron Rodgers, they could tape him up, give him a couple of magic crystals to put on his hamstrings, and he'd be fine because you're not having to have him move that much to
Right.
be effective. Lamar Jackson needs to be healthy to be Lamar Jackson. But yeah, people are crazy nowadays. They see something overreaction city. But I have a hard. Would I bench Derrick Henry if I was dealing with a great team? If I had 4 really good running backs, then he ain't coming out of he'll be off the lineup. Just how I'm treating Chase Brown this week. Chase Brown went from a 12 to 15 point minimum guy last year to now a 6 to 8 point minimum guy. Like now he's benchable. Same with Derrick Henry, but boy, you got to be. If Lamar plays, Derrick Henry's in every one of my starting lineups.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Shall we talk Thursday then?
Yes, let's talk Thursday night. Let's jump into, first of all, before we talk specifics about Thursday, you even guessed it. Go to those scaled power rankings. I love these power rankings,
Now,
folks.
Dennis, why do you love
This
this?
this is to me, if you told me that I could only have one of the tools
Yeah,
out of the professor's little playbook kit,
yeah,
if you said you couldn't even look at the professor's DAPS, you could only look at one piece of professor data every week. It
yeah.
wouldn't be efficiency, it would be the scaled power rankings because this gives a landscape of what to expect from teams.
Yeah, this is forward thinking, forward looking. We have Philly, Green Bay, Dallas, Seattle, Detroit, and the Rams are green. They're in the top. We're expecting big things, lots of good opportunities. And the concern, well, there it is. Uh, Cincinnati, the Giants,
Yeah.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Vegas, I mean, yeah, there's last week was tough. Baltimore,
Yep.
Tennessee, and Miami. Miami's on that edge there, but and Saints are right above that fray. But that is the ones that I'm concerned about. I'm looking. I understand people are talking the Henry with Baltimore, the Higgins with Cincinnati, there's all sorts of discussions. The Giants lost Slayton, so they're what? They've got no more neighbors and Slayton. So uh, to me, I think Theo Johnson is an
Yep.
interesting
Oh yeah.
stream this week. I think
And
you mentioned it.
Scatabo could
It's
catch
Scatabo.
15 passes this week.
And I'm thinking Tracy's coming back and may
Yes.
get stumble into the goal line a little bit. So that's going to be it. But other than that, you're going to have to, let's just say, cherry pick your plays there. It doesn't mean I'm not
Yep.
playing
Yep.
people,
Yep. Yep.
but it's just, it's more just caution. And the other is, for instance, Detroit. I know Williams has been bad, but if that last flex and FFPC and it's lean. He's going to be, I'm going to consider him this week. I did last week, but I'm considering him this week,
Yep.
to flip him in. I mean, again, with that last flex, you're just hoping for 10 to 12 points. And,
Yeah.
he may catch you two or three and get you 60 yards. So, that kind of thing. I mean, this allows you, I think, to frame, as you say, the landscape, the who you're starting, who you're not, and if you're doing pick'ems like I am, uh, been picking pretty good.
Oh
Pick'ems,
yeah. You're
yeah,
leading the way in the
yeah,
TSA group.
yeah. I'm. They don't say anything,
Got a
do
nice
they? Yeah.
comfortable lead actually.
Two game lead, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but
And six
anyway,
ahead of me, I might add. So you're
well,
kicking my butt.
I'm not. I didn't say that. I'm just saying I've been
Oh, I
doing pretty.
am.
Yeah,
I
I
am. You're
know
doing
you
great.
can. Yeah,
You are
well,
doing very, very good.
I've been surprised because I've never done a pick 'em before. So interesting. Anyway, Dennis, you're right. I probably need to look at the last 3 or 4 years. If I had interns, I would have them looking at things like wide receiver, running back, tight end, quarterback,
Yes.
defense production in the red and the green, especially. I would look at the extremes, and that kind of people say, well, Washington's right there. Are they better than Buffalo? Again, if you know data and stats, sometimes things that are around each other and in the middle are pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, somebody's gumbo down the street or somebody else's gumbo down the street, unless they're from Louisiana, they're probably going to be about the same. So there's nothing really going to perk me up, if I got to go there and see things. So uh, that's what I look at the extreme. When I'm looking for a new restaurant in a new town, I'm looking for some of the best,
Oh
and
yeah.
avoiding the worst. But the
Yes.
mid, it's like, well, if I can't find anything, or usually the best are so damn busy that you're thinking, okay, I'll just take a mid thing, and then what I do, Dennis, I figure if it's a midland restaurant, I figure I get a piece of meat that's grilled, because it's like, how can you mess that up? I mean, even if you don't season it, I can get some hot sauce and salt and pepper and make something happen on a piece of shoe leather steak or something, and if
So
I got some chips and hot sauce or something, I can make it work, Dennis.
so
But
this is
so
what I
that's the
refer.
idea. And we need the interns,
Yes.
because I think, folks, that there's deeper information here that I've just not harvested yet. So I just wanted y'all to know that this is not the end of all this. This is just, I hadn't had time to come back. I've been using this because it's just kind of a beginning, and I haven't gotten so deep yet. But there may be some
So
super secrets
yeah,
in here, Dennis.
yeah, and one of the things I think we're going to discover, because I've discovered it as I've used this data, is the teams in the red, just minimize your exposure. Like don't rely on 3 Cincinnati Bengals this week, and you'll be just fine. And I'm going to throw one more thing out there for this
Okay.
week. And you know that on Wednesday, I rarely talk weather because a lot can
Well,
happen
you
between
told me
Wednesday
about the
and
weather.
Sunday.
That's right.
But I've got two very big concerns that have been very consistent on the models from Monday through Wednesday this week.
Right.
There is a massive, massive storm. It's going to be a very early season nor'easter, which will have almost a tropical storm effect to it because of the time of the year and the warmth of the ocean currents and that sort of thing. Think Hurricane Sandy. Remember Hurricane Sandy
Yeah, I
when it
do.
went and attacked New York City?
I remember that.
Think Hurricane Sandy, but staying just off the coast. And it's going to be really too close to Baltimore this week. So remember what I said about Derrick Henry. I wouldn't bench him willy nilly just based on performance. I am looking at teams. This could be just a mess of a game because if the models are even close to being right, we're talking 25 to 35 mile-an-hour winds sustained,
Right.
not wind gusts. We're talking 25 to 35 mile-an-hour winds sustained and moderate to heavy rainfall during the entire game. There's a possibility that they might not be playing football on Sunday in Baltimore. That's how bad this storm could be. The other one that I'm going to give you the heads up on isn't a weather thing as so much as a wind thing. The Kansas City Detroit game, I would want to avoid. And obviously, the Baltimore game, you're avoiding the kickers in that game. You're avoiding the kickers in the Kansas City Detroit game, even though it's two pretty decent kickers, although Butker's been having some accuracy issues this year. We're talking 20 mile-an-hour winds sustained for Kansas City. No weather, no rain, just a very windy night. So I'm a little concerned about Goff because we know that Goff from history over 12 miles an hour does not do well. He's going to have a big test outdoor in the wind against Kansas City this week. And the problem with that is Mr. Spagnola is really good at taking a wind advantage and putting it to his defense's advantage. So I'm a little bit worried about the Detroit passing game this week. Yes, you're going to have to play the Sun God if he's on your squad. And yes, these scaled power rankings are based on a neutral wind, not a major wind event. This could be a major wind event. So I'm worried about that. We'll have an update on the weather on Saturday.
Nice. Okay. And by the way, we got who is it? We got Philadelphia, and let's see, where's Philly?
All the way
Number
at the top,
one, and the Giant. Wow.
all the way at the bottom.
Yeah. So I think Dart is interesting, you know. Efficiency wise, Philadelphia is the top in efficiency last 5 weeks.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh's number two. How about
yeah,
that?
I can believe that.
Detroit and Baltimore. So what I see there, and people say, how does it's all offense. I'm not measuring.
Yeah,
I'm
defense
just
sucks.
measuring. And
Defense is the
again, this
problem.
is some weeks where Lamar was there.
Yeah.
So a lot of this hadn't settled out yet. See, you got to use common sense in metrics. You can't be a slave to it. The bottom, the Chargers have had issues.
Yeah,
Giants, Cleveland, Atlanta. And I know why Atlanta. Atlanta hates to be away from home, and
correct.
Vegas. So there are some home away splits embedded in some of this as well. So I got this if you want to follow. And you know, the two or three that listen to us, thank y'all. I don't know who you are, but if I were you, I would take a separate diary and just start tracking these. And, you know, you're saying, well, do you want me to? Yeah, you can tell me if you want to do free intern level research. It would be nice. But you know,
Hey, we'll
I'm going
bribe
to do it eventually. But yeah,
we'll
I'll take
we'll bribe
anything.
you. We'll
Yeah,
bribe you with even better data.
yeah,
So
yeah, better data. But anyway, I'm curious about what's out there as well. Again, what is this is a landscape of the team itself. You know, does that mean lots of good wide receivers, running backs, etc.? I mean, there's secrets here, Dennis. Okay.
mhm.
Our data, Philly Jets 28-13, 7.5, and the over under is 41. So that's kind of lean. So the Vegas says Philly probably doesn't need 28 points to beat the Giant. If you believe that, the only thing is that quarterback can run in his first game. And again, I think people hadn't scripted for him yet. And I think it's
No.
kind of caught up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I still think he's got talent. And as a side note, I had to pick him up in a couple leagues where I had Jordan Love and I had Lamar, you know,
Yeah.
and both are out. So I picked up Dart, and that first week it helped, but it's been lean last week. But I think the
Yeah,
script,
he still got you 21
yeah, yeah,
last
but
week.
I'm
He
greedy,
didn't kill
Dennis.
you.
I
He
want
didn't kill
30.
you.
I'm greedy. Okay,
I know, but he didn't kill you.
no, no, no.
His rushing
So,
ability
yeah, yeah.
buys you some
By,
floor.
so I'm afraid to drop him now because I don't
No, no,
want. Well,
no.
I've got three quarterbacks. I've got Lamar, Love, and now Dart, and I'm like, man, I don't want to drop any of them. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes it's a problem to have here. Uh, the Giants at home. Look at the Daps. Scatterbo and Tracy have an opportunity, but I just don't know if the Giants with Dart can be patient enough because they're wide receivers. I think it's quarterback, Dart to quarterback, or Dart running in. And this DAP with the running back tells me that Dart's rushing. In other words, if I was going to bet something, I might combine that with a scatterbo, you know, some yardage and a Dart touchdown or a Dart run. You know, you could make you a little parlay bet there. Uh, but that's about it. It looks lean for wide receivers. I would probably not play any. I know Wandale Robinson, I'd be scared to play him
Yeah.
unless you gotta. Philly is away and it's easy wide receivers, easy, easy. Saquon, running back, he should be able to do well, Dennis. What's interesting is the quarterback is tough, and that's probably more passing, but Hurts is mobile. And I hate to see my Goddard shares having to fight toughly Philly is a good streamer this week for a kicker and D here. So if you're just in a bind, if you lost the Indianapolis kicker, this might be an opportunity for a rental. I don't know uh, that, but that's what's going on. Giants are one of the worst efficiency teams, 12 out of 100,
Yeah.
Phillies 102 out of 100. Giants, really nothing dramatic home away, but they at home they love to rush. 42% more rushing attempts than away. Look at what the DAPs are giving them. Passing, 33% less passing. Exactly what Philly's going to give them. Unfortunately, when Philly scores two, three, four, scores, rushing is not going to catch you up. That's the issue. And I think later in the game, they're going to be in a bind and they're going to have to let it fly. Philly loves to play away, Dennis. 30% better away. They're away.
Wow.
Look at
Wow.
that. Philly
That's
away.
crazy.
Yeah. And away, they love to rush and don't like to pass. Look at those splits. Philly is improving. We are now have enough data that what I did, I looked at the last three games, Dennis, and I compared it to the first 5 weeks of efficiency. So as we go on, I'm going to be tracking the last three versus the team level to about 7 or 8, and then I'll start, walking it down that way. I'm just trying to ask the question early on, was it a slower start? And this suggests that Philly's been catching up lately, last three games versus their first two wasn't as strong. I don't know. I hadn't looked at the scores, but efficiency wise, they are improving. So this is interesting. The Giants get what they want. Looks like Philly gets what it wants. So that means I think Vegas probably has got this nailed. The only thing I think Dart is the wild card, and you might get some points or a touchdown from him running in the end zone.
Yeah, very interesting matchup here. First of all, it's going to be a beautiful night in the Meadowlands, so no weather issues whatsoever. So this is a good game to go and grab the Philadelphia kicker if you need somebody. If you're, either had the Indy kicker who's gone, although Batchley is a very good sign for the Indianapolis Colts. He's been out of the league for a while, but last time we saw him, he hit on 83% of his field goals. So I kind of
Oh,
like him as a direct replacement.
that's
But
nice.
anyway, yeah, I'm worried about the Giants in this game. Easy pick, I think, for Philadelphia. I think 7.5 is way under what this line should be. The line should be double digits. But I think it's going to be an over. Because I think the Giants are going to, Dart's going to be able to run his way to a little bit of success. Scatabo is going to be able to do some things as well. This Philadelphia defense is good, but not as great as it was last year. So I think the over is coming in. The Philadelphia story, though, that intrigues me is how a team could go into last week 4-0, defending a championship, and be in that much disarray with their wide receivers upset about not getting the ball enough. I don't think I've ever seen that in a team that is going to be a good defender of their title. I cannot believe that we're seeing Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown whining so much when the team was undefeated. It almost seemed very symbolic, though, of having the two of them land on each other in the end zone for the last play of a losing game last week. So I'm a little worried about A.J. Brown because I just don't know where his head is right now. And I don't know if they're going to have to throw enough to make A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both valuable in this game. I think they're going to go back to ground and pound. Barkley is questionable, though. This might be a place where you grab A.J. Dillon. He might be the next man up. He might be the only one up. I
Mm.
don't think Shipley would be in every down back. So I think A.J. Dillon might not be a bad $1 investment in case Barkley can't go. But last I saw on Barkley is that he will go this week. But do they get a big lead and take him out of the game? That's the big concern. But of course, you got to start Barkley. You got to start Hurts. Boy, oh boy, if you drafted AJ Brown, and I have a few shares, I have more shares of him in Dynasty than I do in redraft, but you kind of have to start him. And, last week you got 9, the week before you got 2, you got 1 to lead off the year. That's ugly. Like, if you drafted AJ Brown where he was going in the drafts, you kind of expect 12 or more points every week, and he's not giving you that. Devonta Smith came a little cheaper, but he's still not producing any better. Although this week in my ratings, he moved 1 spot above his teammate, A.J. Brown, which was rather curious.
Yep. Just some of the things that I would like to figure out is home away splits when you see something dramatic.
Yeah.
What kind of information is that really telling you? Is that just by chance, just the way it's fallen, or is there, especially deeper, right? Think about it. We're all shooting for the playoffs. What's Philly going to be, in week 14, 15, when we probably need some of these players? What are we going to be dealing with here? And like I said, Dennis, I got so many projects here that I would love to investigate further. But that's where we're at today. And I don't think there's anything here on my team level material. Like I said, I love the Philly defense. Jake has an opportunity. Hurts, I love. Barkley, I love. I like Goddard. 82 is not bad. Notice my wide receivers. 72, that's like a low wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 split here, Dennis. I have concerns as well. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
benching Brown. Might bench Smith, but I just don't know. It's hard to. Will they need these guys full tilt, or can they get away if Barkley's not healthy? I think that shifts to Goddard, Brown, and Smith, and I think they would move up a little bit in my liking. But right now, it looks to me like Hurts and Saquon are the show here, and I think a lot of the points will come through there. Scatterbo is 63. That's a RB2-3 type, Dennis. A little worried, but I think you'll get, if you can get 12 points, I'd be happy. And I do like Theo as a tight end too. If you need a streamer this week, if you've Hawkinson on by or Schultz, he could be something that could get you 5, 6 catches and keep you alive. And Wandale 55, that's a WR 3-4 type, Dennis. I got big worry and high uncertain. I got big worries there. Slayton's out, but I didn't have him much. I It's lean here. I'm not playing. I worry about the kicker. I worry about the defense. I don't want a lot of other than Scatterboo. And if I have to play Dart, I don't think I do now. I think I got Love back, so I'll probably be just setting Dart. But Scatterboo is about it for me. I know Tyron Tracy might be coming back. I've heard that he is. We'll see. I didn't rank him, but we'll see. And if he is, I would rank him higher than Scatterboo at all. I'd rank him probably in the 50s. So I'd be cautious about, him coming right off. But I do like Scotty. He's more dynamic, and I think you could get some pass catching and some activity that enough to keep you in the game. I hope he won't fail me like Woody Marks did, I guess is what
There you
I'm
go.
trying to say. And
Yeah,
that's it for me. Yeah.
and this is a similar situation that I would say that, but I would say Scadabo's got a few more ways of being, I'm less worried about Tracy than I was about Chubb when it
Hmm.
comes to Mark. So, but great
Yep.
data as always, Professor. And
Yep.
I always get worried when a team is in the red. So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. I've got a couple of articles waiting over there, and
Got
I'll
one
have
for
that.
sure published. The other one's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. They'll be up there by the time people will listen to this podcast. And I'll have
Yep.
another article before the weekend. We're going to take a look at that next man up index concept that the professor keeps giving me assignments and I keep accepting them.
Yep.
Head on over to the sports affiliation. Check out all of their shows. Like and subscribe to their YouTube channel and
See
come back on.
Dennis and Snap Crackle Pop. Go see
Oh,
what he had to say
yes.
for this bust and his
Woo.
plays this week. Secret stuff.
Big pop predictions of who I think the sleepers are. And you got to tune into the show to get the definition of sleepers. And head on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks. See you Saturday. We'll be recording.
All right.
There we
We have
go.
got
That
a
was fun.
wrap.
Yep,
Very
that was
good.
good. That was
Very
good.
good.
Okay. Anything before we head
Ah,
on here? It's about supper time down here in
it
the South.
is just about supper time here, too. I'm
Dogs got to be
hungry.
fed, and
Yeah,
squirrels got to be fed and chased,
dogs got to be walked.
walked. Yep.
Yep, my Cubs are playing, so
Oh, I hope they win. We don't
they're
have we don't have
if
baseball here in
if
Arkansas at the
if they
pro
lose, the
level.
season's over. So it's win and they get to play another game. It's lose and heading on vacation time. So
Uh,
the pressure is on, but they are 1-1 in the bottom of the first with the bases loaded.
I hope it
So,
works out, Dennis.
and
Good luck.
my grandson had a really solid outing. His first time
Nice.
ever pitching Monday.
Nice.
It was exciting. Yeah, he gave up only one run and he struck out three.
Nice.
And so it was his first time ever pitching.
Yeah.
Okay. So two other kids got their first chance at pitching last night, and both of them gave up over 5 runs. Like they gave up the
Nice.
maximum of 5 runs. So his outing is looking very good in
Yeah. I've called it up the scouts.
I'm telling you, I'm gonna get him signed. I'm gonna
Yeah.
represent the
Granddad
kid.
needs a little paycheck because
I'm
our,
gonna rep
you know, our
I'm
fantasy
represent
football ain't gonna pay that mortgage.
I'm gonna be representing that kid. I'll get him a good contract.
That's
So,
good, Dennis. Hope it
but
works
no, it
out.
was he had so much fun. It was
That's
so
great.
fun watching him
That's
pitch.
that's good. That's nice.
Yeah.
T-ball where you stick it
No,
on the.
no. This is
Oh,
this
this
is
is
real
hardball.
live pitching
Nice,
hardball. Yeah, and
nice.
he had a line shot single to left, like right between the infielders, and just nailed it. Like he barreled that ball. He hit it hard, and so he was having a good time Monday. Last night he didn't do as well. It was a cold night, and so he was wearing a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
And it was like the hidden ball trick. He fielded the ball, made a good play on a very hard hit ball into the right field where he was playing.
Yeah.
He picked it up, he went to go throw it, and his sleeve flopped down over the ball, and
Oh my
he
God.
lost control of the ball. So it kind of came out sideways,
Oh my
and he got
goodness.
to run and pick it up and fire it into the infield. But his
Oh my
sleeve got
God.
in the way last night,
Oh
so it was
boy, poor kid.
not as great of a game, but
Yeah.
it was they have fun. The coach is fantastic, and the team is really like they play real baseball. These are like 10-year-old kids, and
Nice.
they play some serious baseball. There was a ground ball to the hole between first baseman and the second baseman. First baseman came over and made a beautiful play on
Wow.
the ground ball, threw it to the pitcher who was coming over to to cover first base.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a runner on second who was heading to third. That runner was heading home, infield ground ball. The kid who was the pitcher who came over to cover, after he gets the out, he fires a strike right to the catcher, and they chased the guy back to third base.
Wow.
It was a bang, bang, bang play, and I'm like, holy shit, this is real baseball. It was fun. It was fun to watch. So I hollered out. I was pretty close to the dugout. I said, got to give that coach and staff a raise. And the coach walks over, the manager of the team walks over. He says, yeah, I like Bud Light high Bud Light. What was it? Tall boys.
Tall boys.
He says, yep, pay us in Bud Light tall boys. So he owns a gym, a workout gym near my work. So after the season, I'm going to go stop at the liquor store and pick up some Bud Light tall boys and drop them off.
Pay that man. That's good.
Pay that man, but he'll get a kick out of that. But he's been such a terrific coach. I've seen so many bad coaches that when you get a good coach, you gotta treat him well.
That's a treasure. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been fun all season, man. I haven't missed a game. It's been so much fun. But real baseball, man.
Yeah, real baseball at real
10 years old. At 10 years old, they're playing real baseball.
I'm gonna shut this down.